In 1968, on February 12, 1,300 African-American sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee went on strike. This was known as the Memphis Sanitation Workers' Strike. They refused to report a work demanding higher wages, safe working conditions, and recognition of their union. The governor refused to negotiate with them. Later, on March 29th, a peaceful protest of 5,000 people bearing signs reading, "I am a man," took place. However, it quickly turned violent when around 200 participants started breaking storefront windows and looting. Martin Luther King responds to this in April at a conference.
In the speech, "I've Been to the Mountaintop," Martin Luther King reacts to the historical strike of 1,300 workers in Memphis, Tennessee. His purpose is to remind the Black population of nonviolent protests and encourage unity. He conveys this with a parental tone.
Martin Luther King expresses his appreciation for living in these modern days at a time when change is more relevant. He uses simplicity to highlight magnificent events in hundreds of years before, but to also proclaim that he would not have wanted to live there but today. He uses this by repeating phrases at the beginning and end of several paragraphs. He says, "I would go on, even to the great heyday of the Roman Empire, and I would see developments around there through various emperors and leaders, but I wouldn't stop there." This contributes to the theme by putting a more positive twist on things. He is encouraging people to make change and contribute to the movement by saying that they should be grateful for living in a time so susceptible to change. He talks about a time, hundreds of years before, where he would not want to have lived, to further prove his point.
Martin Luther King uses commentary diction when he says, "The issue is the refusal of Memphis to be fair and honest in its dealings with the public servants, who happen to be sanitation workers." The modifier at the end of the sentence establishes that the people are not defined by their economic status. Their purpose and freedom should not be divided from that of the whites.
Martin Luther King retells of the constant struggle for Black people to be subject to the same rights, even though they are outlined in the Constitution for all citizens of the United States. He alludes to the First Amendment by saying, "But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right." This emphasizes a major fault in our country for not living up to its claims on paper. This reminds the spectators that all men and women are created equal before God.
After expressing the requirement of unity amongst the African Americans, Martin Luther King states, "Let us develop a kind of dangerous unselfishness. The use of litotes serves to convey the power that integrity and peace in numbers can have." He reveals that it is unnecessary to use violence as a way of bringing about change and suggests that using their voices to refuse to back down will indeed be more influential.
It was crucial that Martin Luther King firmly spoke against their violent mistakes at the Memphis protests and advocated that they have a powerful unity in peace. Using a tone of fatherly authority allowed his listeners to be humble and uplifted. "I've Been to the Mountaintop" was the last speech delivered by Martin Luther King, the day before he was assassinated.
Created using Powtoon.